That's you. You've just popped into RuneScape, all your levels are 1, and you can't do anything. Does that look familiar to you? Well, great, you're in the right place. My name is Tasty, and I've recently been elected mayor of RuneScape. And as mayor, it's my duty to handle the flood of new players coming in recently, as you can see by this graph. And RuneScape can be really intimidating with the insane amount of content and endless directions to go in, so I'm gonna break it down. Okay, now that that's done, let's talk about what to actually do in RuneScape if you're just starting out. There's a lot of guides out there that go over settings and basic mechanics, but I want to lay out a more concrete path for people who want to know what direction to head in but don't want to follow a step-by-step guide that sucks out all critical thinking and engagement. I'm going to begin with a broader sweep of the general philosophy because I do think it's important to hear, but if you're already underway and you just want to know where to go, most of this video will be that concrete path, so I'll timestamp the important elements. As promised, the first thing we're going to talk about is the philosophy of the game. And look, I know a lot of you guys are coming from WoW or more modern games, and I gotta level with you. It's not like that, alright? There's no instant gratification here. Things take a while. If you watch any big RuneScape creators and think, oh wow, that looks fun, odds are it's taken them thousands upon thousands of hours to get there. So commonly what I see people doing is trying their hardest to zerg out to the end game, because that's kind of how other games usually work, and they end up spinning their wheels and doing grinds that they don't like, and then they just quit, because they never got to the quote-unquote fun part.
Dad, when do we get to the ride?
This is the ride!
RuneScape is not like World of Warcraft. In WoW, you grind as hard as you can for a couple weeks, you get to endgame, and then the game actually starts. RuneScape starts as soon as you spawn in. The early game, the middle game, and the end game are all equally important experiences. Every piece of progress is extremely meaningful in RuneScape. You don't lose anything to the next expansion pack or update. Everything is the same level of good forever, and that's exactly the reason that the grinds take so long. You really feel like you earn what you have in this game. It's a journey, and not the crappy rock band that my Uncle Steve smoked meth to in his garage. It's 1,000 little goals that all intersect and feed into each other, and it really should be enjoyable from the very start. I want to give a quick shout out to boot.dev for sponsoring today's video and letting me do what I love for a living. Now, if you don't know what bootdev is, it is one of the most useful and intuitive ways to learn programming in Python, SQL, and Go, and the reason it's becoming so popular is because of their really fun approach to learning. Bootdev is structured like a classic RPG, so if you like RuneScape, you're gonna love this. Number go up good. They have levels, quests, XP, leaderboards, the whole 9 yards, and their philosophy is to get you writing as much code as possible, because doing is by far the best way to learn. This really resonates with me because I feel the same exact way about RuneScape. They have great tools to help you along the way, including Boots, the AI wizard bear, who will not just answer your questions, but also ask you follow-up ones to nudge you back on track. The best part is that BootDev is really confident in their product, and they don't want people to feel like they're wasting their money, especially students, so they offer a 30-day, no questions asked refund policy. Go ahead and check out boot.dev, try out a free teaser for each course, and use code TastyLife to get 25% off your entire first year on the annual plan. Thanks to BootDev, and back to the video. Okay, here we are, we're back in Lumbridge. You have no levels, no experience, and potentially no bitches, so let's fix all of that. All of the methods available to you at level 1 are pretty slow. It makes sense, you're basically a baby, and I've never seen a baby do anything cool. There is a great way to rocket forward, however, and that is questing. Questing is priority numero uno as soon as you log in, because quests give a huge amount of XP relative to what you would get spending hours doing low-level content like mining copper. My Uncle Steve used to do that on the pipes of unbuilt houses, and he never amounted to much. When you prioritize questing to get your early levels up, you unlock faster and better methods really quickly. The levels you get from one quest can immediately give you all of the requirements for another quest, which can unlock all the requirements for a third quest. RuneScape is basically just that one scene from Malcolm in the Middle. I can't play it because it's copyrighted, but I hope you guys know what I'm talking about. But okay, Tasty, there's 400 quests. Which one do I do? Well, first off, download Quest Helper on the RuneLite plugin hub. You'll thank me later. But more importantly, the wiki has a very valuable, efficient questing guide. And as a generality, all right, I don't like newer players to focus too much on efficiency, because that can pretty quickly drain the soul out of the game. But personally, I'm a min-maxer by heart, and I followed it loosely for the first 100 or so hours of my gameplay, and I had a great time. Take note of the RuneScape wiki too, because that is one of the most valuable resources in the game. It will tell you everything that you need to know. Another generality, all right, prioritize getting your combat stats up early on. This will help you not die. That's it. This section of the efficient quest guide will get all of your early levels out of the way with basically no actual combat training, so definitely work towards this because combat is going to be the meat of most RuneScape content. We do have endgame skilling as well for those who like that. I believe there are 4 people who do that, so for all intents and purposes, we're going to focus a lot on PVM progression here. In the meantime, a lot of your early game will revolve around questing, but in between those quests, you will certainly have to do some skilling to get the next requirements. Again, use the wiki or even YouTube videos to find the best methods for your level and skill. This should get you familiar with a lot of content. I really enjoy all of these skilling mini games we have in RuneScape, so check those out. Wintertodt, absolute classic, but Temperos is quite fun as well, and they even added a new fletching mini game. There's a bunch, there's a lot. But just remember to turn off public chat when you get to these, unless you would like to incite political violence, in which case maybe participate in the chat. So when in doubt, quest. Most players' first long-term goal is the QuestCape. It's a fantastic goal. Your stats will be set up for success by the time you finish it, and you can go forward and do most everything in the game. But in all honesty, you're gonna get pretty bored if you do nothing but quests for the 3 to 6 months that it will take you to get the QuestCape, so I would recommend breaking it up with some of the other things I'm going to talk about. Diaries are also really slept on in the early game. Diaries are just little lists of tasks for each area in RuneScape, and if you complete their various requirements, you not only get a juicy XP lamp to use on the skill of your choosing, but you get some really good benefits like the ones that I'm scrolling through now. Do these as soon as you're able, and thank me later. A smaller section here is doing your chores.
You must make your bed.
That's a Jordan Peterson impression, which I would like to apologize for, and also he is correct on that point. Just don't watch anything after that. Trust. Once you get around 500 total level, there are some really good passive activities that you can do to get XP in the game, make a little bit of money, and still be lazy. It's also a great way to break up whatever grind you happen to be on, and these little activities are referred to as your dailies, or in some case, hourlies. You have things like herb runs with the farming skill or birdhouses with the hunter skill. These are the 2 big ones because you can do them every hour and they take like 2 minutes each, and you get so much money and XP for the amount of time you spend doing this. There are plenty of guides on YouTube for that stuff, so I'm not going to get super into it, but it's a good thing to do, so check out those guides. A personal anecdote here is that I generally hate time-gated activities that require you to play the game at certain times, and I'm sure you guys do as well, but hear me out on this. It can certainly lead to feeling like you are forced to play when maybe you can't or shouldn't, and that is giga depresso, as they say in Italy. That sort of required play when you're on the game schedule instead of your own is frustrating, and it's actually why I quit World of Warcraft back in the day. Warlords of Draenor, for those who are in the know. More like World of Garrison Craft. Sorry if you had to live through that back then. Doing your daily activities feels a little bit different in RuneScape, alright? You can do them just about as much as you want, and it doesn't really feel devastating if you miss a day of farming runs or whatever. And ironically, this made my autism flare up where I wanted to do the dailies and the hourlies. I would literally set timers on my phone so I knew exactly when I could log on and do another. Birdhouse runs, herb runs, tree runs, seaweed runs, battle staves, Tears of Gothics. I did all of these things religiously when starting up, and I was making tons of GP and XP every day relatively passively. Also, if you're an Iron Man, these are basically mandatory, but this entire video is made to be pretty Iron Man friendly. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes of combat progression. You've got the basics down, quest points looking good, stats getting up there, but one thing is missing: your gear. You're looking pretty weak, man. What is that, a rune scimitar? We've got some work to do. I'm gonna treat this as a soft Iron Man guide in terms of gear and combat progression, but if you're a brand new main, this is the general path you want to follow. You can also just buy the gear that you want to skip the content for, but I'm a big proponent of trying everything RuneScape has to offer because you never know what you're gonna like. A big note I want you to keep in mind at this point: you need less money than you think. It is almost never worth it to do some sort of pure money-making activity like looting in a PvP world. Don't watch those YouTube videos, they're gonna fill your brain with lies. You want to spend time doing things that actually progress your account. Quests, skilling, getting untradables. These will help you so much more in the long term than just like hopping worlds and picking up trash loot from people's nechrils task, you little fucking goblin. Iron Men though, you're never gonna have enough money, so just learn to cope with that. Now back to bossing and gear progression. Luckily for us, Jagex has spent a huge amount of time making that progression smooth and easy. At this point, you should have basic gear like the Helm of Natisnot, Rune Armor, Dragon Scimitar, climbing boots, stuff like that. It's also worth working towards your Dragon Defender and finishing up those Barrows gloves around now, because those are both huge early game achievements, and they're essentially your best in slot for like the next 1,000 hours. The rest of these items are unlocked through quests and activities, so if you're lacking these, then I'd recommend intermingling the combat progression coming up with finishing off those grinds. Now, starting off, if you are uncomfortable with combat mechanics, the easiest boss in the game is called Scurious, and it's a great training tool. Your combat skills should be around level 50 when you attempt this. It gives boosted XP rates, so it's actually really good to train your combats on. It also drops weaponry that does extra damage to rats, of which Scurious is conveniently classified as, so boom, more XP there. It has pretty decent drops and teaches you the basics of PvM. You don't have to spend a lot of time here, but it's good if you're an absolute beginner or if you just want to farm some combat levels. A fantastic and far more AFK way to farm combat levels is the brand new Gem Crab. God, I love him. He is perfect in every way. All you have to do here is click it once, and you don't even have to look for another 10 minutes. I'd alternate between these two bosses to get your combat levels up to like 60 to 70 before completing Defender and Barrow's gloves. The next step we're taking is some Barrow's gear. Barrow's Brothers is one of the oldest and most iconic bosses in RuneScape, and I can't believe it still has a use in the early and middle game. Pure class. It is absolutely worth going here and grabbing some armor pieces. The chest and legs are a priority, but helmet never hurt. I am talking specifically about the melee gear. The other sets would be fine to get, but you want specifically a melee chest and legs because this is going to be your tank gear. Or more colloquially, gear that helps you take less damage because the bosses coming up are going to be some pretty heavy hitters and they're going to start to pose a real threat. Now, a small sidestep from bossing, I highly recommend going for the Zombie Axe and Piety at this point. The Zombie Axe is so good and will carry you very far into the middle game. You should have close to enough money to afford it if you're a main, but if you're an Iron Man, it is a bit of a grind with a 70 smithing requirement. But luckily, all you got to do is DoorDash a couple 4 Locos and make a weekend out of the Giant's Foundry. Piety is the most powerful melee prayer in the game and will absolutely skyrocket your damage. Now, 70 prayer is the requirement for that. Can be a little expensive, or if you're an Iron Man, it can be a little tedious. A few popular methods are killing blue dragons for their bones, or what I personally prefer is grinding out hunter rumors to get a lot of hunter levels. Rumors passively give prayer XP, so it's more of like a hunter method, but it will give you a lot of blessed bone shards, which you can use to get your prayer up. It's certainly slower than directly farming dragon bones, but it gives way more loot, progresses your account really, really well, and also they're just a lot of fun. Let's take a quick second because we're about to get into what I like to call the middle game. You've officially made it. You can very easily spend 500 hours getting here. I know talking it over in short format like this might make it sound like a quick deal, but this is a few months of progress we've covered so far. The important things to have now are Barrow's Gloves, Dragon Defender, Zombie Axe, Piety, all those things you gotta work for whether main or Iron Man. The content from now on will start to get much more challenging and in my opinion, more engaging as well, and at this point your range gear should be pretty acceptable enough to get yourself a fire cape from Jad, so keep that in mind as well. Let's start off with probably the single best addition to the RuneScape middle game ever. Perilous Moons. Jagex knocked it out of the park with this one. I am actually really excited to get here on my hardcore that I just started, which you can watch on my stream, by the way, at twitch.tv/TastyLife, live every day at 3 p.m. Pacific, except for Wednesday and Thursday. It's my weekend, buddy. Everyone gets a weekend. Anyway, Perilous Moons is 3 different bosses, kind of like Barrows, and in the same vein, it drops 3 different armor sets. There's a mage set, a melee set, and a range set, and it is pretty much worth getting every item from this boss. The normal loot is extremely useful. You get herbs, prayer, GP, supplies. I mean, I could just gush on about this, but even better with this boss, it uses 0 supplies, okay? It costs literally nothing because you make your own food and potions the entire time you're in here. I once sat here for 8 hours straight grinding this boss and I did not leave a single time to bank or pee because I was wearing my gamer diaper, which is in fact for big boys, so please stop telling me it's not. These 3 armor sets are useful pretty much everywhere, all right? It's gonna take a good few hours to get all these, probably in the order of days to weeks. But as you've seen, there is plenty of content to do in the meantime. If you want to break, maybe try, I don't know, clues. Have I mentioned clues yet? They're really fun because it's like gambling, and I love gambling. When I wake up, I'm physically shaking because of how excited I am to gamble, and it won't stop until I play online craps, and clues drop some really cool stuff. If you've waited until this long in the guide to go back and get your fire cape, that means you're a giant fucking pussy, but it should be pretty easy now, so go do that. And we have one final step before the floodgates open, and you could genuinely do pretty much any content in the game. Royal Titans, baby. RuneScape's premier duo boss experience. If you thought fire giants weren't thick enough, I've got fantastic news because these things are genuine ass daddies. They drop prayer scrolls that give you upgraded prayers similar to piety, which we got earlier. You're going to want to get both of those for range and mage, and also the twin flame staff that these guys drop. This is the point in the guide where the path is genuinely wide open. You've got great stats, you've got basic gear for everything in the game, and my direction will mean a lot less now, if it ever meant anything at all. But for the sake of the gamers, I'll lay out a few of the things that you can try really in any order. Probably the fastest and easiest is to head to the Tormented Demons and get yourself 3 synapses and some Burning Claws. Great spec weapon and the Demon Bane weapons from the synapses are useful in a lot of content. After that, you could try heading yourself to the Corrupted Gauntlet and getting the Bow of Ferdinand, also known as the Bofa. That is the most broken weapon in the game, dude. Granted, this content is very hard. This will be the first significant jump in difficulty along the way. Similar to Perilous Moons, you don't need any gear or supplies because you make it all in the encounter. And also, the normal loot here will make you rich as shit, so when you go dry, you can wipe your tears with $100 bills. Now, if you've done everything else here, it's probably time to start hitting up some raids. Tombs of a Masket, to be specific. I know raids can be really intimidating because there just isn't much like it up to this point, but TOA is designed for beginners to help them to get into raiding. There's variable difficulty, so you can pick and choose what mechanics you want to do and learn, and there's a holy grail of an item that you can get here really easily. Osmumtin's Fang. The most common drop and the most broken melee weapon considering how easy and cheap it is to get. This will not only make it much easier to farm TOA itself, but it can be used almost anywhere to great effect. And with all that, maybe it's time to go check out Zul'Ra? I don't know, get yourself a blowpipe, dude. That never hurt anyone. And congratulations, you are literally a grandmaster. You have the ability to try out almost every Slayer boss, almost every other boss that I haven't mentioned in this guide. Dip your toes into raids. I am proud of you guys. Thank you for listening and stay tasty. Also, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer. Good night.